part of the role of being a leader, we'll just say leader, we'll get to president, but a leader is to sometimes console, sometimes look out for the citizens and the constituents you represent, to take care of them in their lowest moments, whether that be through policy or through face-to-face or over-the-phone interactions. We've seen this over the course of the last weekend when truly decent people have reached out to leaders in Minnesota to give them their deepest condolences for the politically motivated conservative attacks on Democrats, the assassination of Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the attempted assassination of John Hoffman and his wife. Even Canadian leaders, even conservatives like Doug Ford, the premier of Ontario, I believe, he called Tim Walz to extend his condolences and I'm sure offer, like, what can we do to help? Anything we can do, you let us know. Because in moments where there is a lack of humanity showed by maniacs, in this case, a Republican maniac, it should be a moment of unity. If you think about in the past, the times that people really drew together, it's times of human tragedy, 9/11. Remember Superstorm Sandy, when Christie hugged Barack Obama and the right wing lost their fucking minds? It's humanity on display. And apparently that's too much for Republicans and conservatives, especially this version of the Republican Party. Doug Ford, that premier, he did call Tim Walz. Tim Walz tweeted about it. He said this: "My thanks to Premier Doug Ford of Ontario," it is Ontario, "who called to express his condolences to the Hortman family and the people of Minnesota. In times of tragedy, I'm heartened when people of different views and even different nations can rally together around our shared humanity." All of the concepts I've been talking about, right? Donald Trump hasn't done this. Donald Trump will probably not do this. He was asked yesterday on Air Force One by Caitlin Collins from CNN about the horrific details. What do you know about it? Have you called Tim Walz? And rather than be a good and decent man, an example to his good Christian followers, I reached out to Governor Walz in this wild time, in this tragic instance where human beings, Americans, have lost their lives. He didn't say any of that. Instead, he talked about how Tim Walz appointed Vance Luther Boelter to his position, as though that has any bearing, almost as a way to say it's Tim Walz's fault that what happened. And then he goes off and he says that he's calling him names. He's whacked out. I'm not going to waste my time calling him, as though the call is for Tim Walz himself and not a signal to the people of Minnesota, the Americans of Minnesota, the family members of the victims, the people who are hurting right now. But it was for them. Because Donald Trump is a sociopath, another word for psychopath, who doesn't feel empathy. It doesn't functionally happen for him. He doesn't have the mechanism for it. He doesn't care how those families feel, how those children who don't have parents anymore feel. He doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit about it. And we're seeing cruelty on display all over the Republican Party. I'm going to talk about Mike Lee a little later. But watch this exchange, the callousness of this exchange between Caitlin Collins and President of the United States, Donald Trump.
On Minnesota, there were a lot of horrific details that came out today about the suspect who's been charged there. Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. He appointed this guy to a position. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling him. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, "Hi, how you doing?" The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and call him, but why waste time?
The big, beautiful bill.
Yeah, it would have been a waste of time, assuredly. It would have been a waste of Tim Walz's fucking time. had Donald Trump called to blather on about whatever nonsense he would have said. You're not going to waste your time? Tim Walz is all whacked out? What? There's going to be more of this to come from conservatives, from Donald Trump, and the Republican Party will justify it. That when an earthquake or wildfires or tornadoes or some other natural disaster, when it hits, and it hits a blue state, a state with a Democrat governor, Donald Trump's going to withhold aid. He's going to harm even his own people. Because look, even a state like California with like 40 million people has a wide swath of Republicans that live there. And Donald Trump just thinks because a Democrat got elected, because of the preponderance of the vote, because of the majority are Democrats, that there must not be any Republicans there. It's the same criticism I have for people who say, I don't give a fuck about Texas. Who cares about Texas? Let it fall into the sea. Who cares? Ignoring the fact that there are millions and millions of Democrats who live there. We shouldn't even think about things like this. If someone, even if a MAGA person, even if a vile Donald Trump supporting racist needs help in a moment of tragedy, we should, by virtue of being Americans, take care of that person. And Donald Trump fosters an attitude of callousness among his followers because they imitate him. His cabinet officials, callous, weak-minded, bootlickers, brown-nosers, yes men and women, every single one. And they will emulate the dear leader. This wasn't Tim Walz's fault. It wasn't even Donald Trump's fault himself. Indirectly, it certainly is, because he has foisted upon us normalization of political violence time and time and time and time and time and time again. But the man who's to blame here is the man who pulled the trigger, is the man who claims to be a righteous, mighty man of Christ, who took it upon himself to don, allegedly, who donned a latex mask inside of a fake cop car with a fake cop uniform and assassinated people he did not like politically. And Donald Trump can't waste enough time for a 10-minute phone call, a 5-minute phone call. You can't waste 120 fucking seconds to call the governor or the family. He hadn't even called the family. Republican Party Politics 101. What do you think? I would appreciate your feedback. You can comment below. You can also leave me a voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me as always, daily@dollemore.com. I'd love to hear from you. Please consider supporting this work financially. If you have an extra $2 laying around, you can help me produce these videos. Click the join button below. For just that, $2, you can become a channel member. You can go to patreon.com/idoubtapodcast. Both of those are great ways to help support this work. You can go to dollemore.com. Anyway, follow me on social media. We can talk about it there. I am at Dollemore. I'd love to see you. Things are going to have to change. Things have to change. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.